Alright, so this is the rectum and anus. I am gonna not be talking about the rectum today because that's where most of the action happens. The anus, not so much. That's just like the end of the deal. The rectum is part of your large intestine. It's that last little bit before the anus. And its main function is to store waste, expel waste through defecation. So here's how it works. Once food gets through your stomach, it enters the small intestine, and the small intestine is where most of the digestion happens. Well, it is and it isn't. There are a lot of things that can go wrong with the rectum and anus that can make this whole process pretty uncomfortable. It's called familial adenomatous polyposis. People with this condition will develop hundreds to even thousands of polyps in their rectum that can turn into cancer if they are not removed. The good news is that it's a genetic condition, so you can get tested to see if you have the gene for it. If you do, you can take preventative measures. But the second way that cancer can affect the rectum is through something called metastatic spread. That just means cancer from somewhere else in the body, usually the colon or the breast or the prostate, has spread to the rectum. This is not so good, but fortunately it's pretty rare. For example, hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids are like little varicose veins in your anus, and they can swell up and cause a lot of pain and bleeding. Or you could have a condition called constipation, where your stool is so hard that it can't get through the anus no matter how much you strain. In that case, we might need to do a procedure called a colonoscopy, and I've talked about that before in another video. Or you could have the opposite problem, where you're having loose, watery stools that just won't stop coming out of your rectum. That can be caused by a number of different things, one of them being inflammatory bowel disease. That's a whole other topic. By the time it gets to the end of the small intestine, most of the nutrients have already been absorbed into your bloodstream. What's left over is mostly undigested fiber, water, and a bunch of bacteria. That's what makes up your stool or your poop. So as the stool moves into the rectum actually has the ability to absorb some water and salt from the stool. And depending on how much water you're drinking, sometimes it can even absorb more water than it loses. Now, there are 3 sphincters that control the flow of things. You have 2 sphincters that are internal to your body and 1 that's external. The internal sphincters are smooth muscle, which means they're under the control of your autonomic nervous system. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to squeeze them. They just do their thing automatically, and their job is to keep the anal canal closed to keep the stool from leaking out when you really don't want it to leak out, like when you're trying to sleep or something. The external sphincter, though, that's under your voluntary control. That means you get to decide when that thing opens and closes. So when you feel like you gotta go, the external sphincter relaxes and the stool passes through the anus and out of your body. So if you're really well hydrated, your stool will be very soft, almost like liquid. But if you haven't been drinking enough water, then your stool will be harder, more like a solid mass. The rectum can stretch to accommodate anywhere from 200 to 300 grams of stool. So once the rectum has kind of reached its maximum capacity, it sends a signal to your brain saying, "Hey, I'm full, I'm distended, it's time to go." Sounds simple, right? Alright, so let's talk about cancer. Cancer can affect the rectum in 2 ways. One of them is actually pretty rare. I hope you enjoyed learning about your rectum and anus. If you did, please like and share, and I'll see you next time.